Aiden had heard about the galactic market many times before, but he had never been brave enough to visit. The rumors that swirled around the place were fascinating, and part of him wanted to experience it firsthand. It wasn't just about the exotic items or the rare alien species. It was about something deeper, something that tugged at his curiosity. Today, though, he had finally decided to step through the market's bustling gates. The market was alive with sounds and sights that Aiden had only read about in stories. Alien vendors called out to passers-by, offering goods from every corner of the galaxy. The colors were blinding, with various species and machines moving in every direction. Humans were a minority here, but they weren't out of place. Aiden felt a thrill rush through him as he walked deeper into the market, his eyes wide with excitement and wonder, but it was a quiet stall tucked in the corner that drew his attention. There, standing behind a counter, was a woman unlike any other. She was an alien, her smooth skin a pale shade of lavender, almost shimmering under the market's bright lights. Her large eyes were a striking shade of blue, like the deep ocean, and they held a kind of mystery and unreadable depth that seemed to pull at Aiden's very soul. She stood tall, with an elegance that made her seem like she belonged to another world, and yet there was something painfully familiar about her. She wore a simple, flowing gown, but it wasn't what caught Aiden's attention. It was her face, the way she seemed so out of place in a market that treated beings like her as commodities. Aiden stopped in his tracks, feeling a sudden, strange urge to learn more about her. The sign above her stall read, "Rent a companion, enjoy the exotic." Beneath it was a smaller note, "For a limited time only." Aiden knew what this meant. He had heard rumors that in the galactic market, some aliens were rented out for companionship. It was a common practice, but something about this woman made it feel wrong, like she wasn't supposed to be here. She caught his gaze, and for a brief moment their eyes locked. Her expression shifted ever so slightly, as if surprised by his attention. Most visitors to the market barely looked twice at the exotic aliens, treating them as temporary entertainment. But Aiden didn't look away. Instead, he felt a strange connection, something beyond just attraction. A woman behind the counter smiled at him. "Interested in renting a companion for the day? She's quite popular." Aiden glanced at the alien woman again, unsure of what to say. "What's her name?" The vendor grinned. "That's Siren. She's been with us for a while. Rent her, and you'll experience a lifetime of stories in one day." Not many people can say they've spent time with her. Aiden's gaze never left Siren. There was something in her eyes, something that told him she wasn't like the others. She wasn't just a rented companion. No, there was more to her than that. Something hidden beneath her calm exterior. Is there more to her than just being a companion? Aiden asked, his voice quieter than he intended. He wasn't sure where the question had come from, but it was the truth. The vendor's smile faltered for a moment before she quickly recovered. "She's an exotic beauty." Nothing more, nothing less. Aiden's chest tightened as he studied Siren, her posture stiff but graceful. She didn't smile, didn't seem to react to the offer in the same way that others might. The way she stood there, almost detached from everything around her, made Aiden feel uneasy. "Can I speak to her?" he asked, unable to tear his gaze away. The vendor nodded, stepping aside. Siren didn't move or look at Aiden, but he could see the subtle shift in her body language. The way her shoulders tensed just slightly, it was almost as if she knew this moment would come, that someone would see beyond the facade and finally ask questions. Aiden approached her slowly, unsure of what he should say. As he drew closer, he could feel her presence more strongly. There was an undeniable magnetism about her. But there was also a sadness, a quiet sorrow that seemed to seep through her every movement. "Hi," Aiden said, his voice gentle. Aiden, I don't know if I'm in the right place, but I wanted to ask you something." Siren's gaze flicked up to meet his. Her eyes were deep and unreadable, and for a moment he felt as if she could see straight through him. "Why are you here?" he asked softly. "Why are you being rented out like this?" She didn't respond immediately. Her eyes studied him as if she was weighing something in her mind. After a long pause, she finally spoke, her voice calm but distant. Because I have no other choice. Aiden felt a pang in his chest, an instinctive understanding that there was so much more to this woman than her role as a companion. He could see it in the way she spoke so matter-of-fact, yet with an undercurrent of pain that she was trying desperately to hide. "Is that what you want?" Aiden asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "To be rented out? To live like this?" Siren's gaze faltered for just a moment, a flicker of something too complex to name crossing her face. "It's not about what I want. It's about survival." Aiden stood there, trying to make sense of her words, but they didn't add up. He had come here expecting to experience the exotic thrill of an alien companion, but now that he was talking to Siren, all he felt was the overwhelming desire to protect her. She didn't belong in this market, didn't belong in this position. There was something about her spirit, about the quiet strength she exuded, that made Aiden think she was more than just a mere commodity. "I don't want to rent you," he said, surprising even himself. "I want to help you. There has to be more than just this." Siren blinked, and for the first time, Aiden saw the faintest trace of hope flicker in her eyes. But she quickly masked it, replacing it with the same unreadable expression she had warned before. "You can't help me," she replied quietly, turning away. "No one can." Aiden stood there for a long time, his heart pounding in his chest. He couldn't just walk away. He couldn't leave her here, knowing there was so much more to her story, than just being rented out for the pleasure of others. After a moment, he made a decision. He knew he wasn't going to just rent her for a day. No, he wanted to do something that felt both insane and right. He was going to do what he could to give her the life she deserved, the life of freedom, of choice. Aiden couldn't shake the image of Siren from his mind. Her calm demeanor, the quiet sadness in her eyes, it was all too much to ignore. As he walked through the galactic market, the sounds and sights around him faded into the background. His thoughts were focused entirely on the woman he had just met. He hadn't expected to feel so connected to someone he barely knew. Yet something about her had stirred something deep inside him. He couldn't stand the thought of her remaining in that stall, being rented out day after day like a mere object. Aiden had to do something. He just didn't know what dot as he made. His way back to his temporary quarters, his mind raced. Was it even possible to help someone like Siren? She had been sold, rented, and treated like an item for so long. Could a simple human like him truly make a difference? He didn't know, but he was determined to find out. The next morning he returned to the galactic market, this time with a sense of purpose. He had decided he wasn't going to walk away this time. If he could afford it, he would buy Siren's freedom. He wasn't sure how he would do it, but he was ready to figure it out. When he arrived at the same stall, Siren was there. Her eyes met his the moment he stepped through the entrance, and she didn't look away. There was no surprise in her gaze, just a silent understanding. She had seen humans come and go, many of them treating her like a temporary distraction, a passing fancy. But Aiden was different. He had looked at her and asked the questions others never did. Aiden stepped closer, his heart pounding in his chest. "Good morning, Siren," he said, his voice soft. "Good morning," she replied, her voice calm but guarded. "You've come back," Aiden nodded. "I didn't want to leave things the way they were. I've been thinking about what you said. About survival. You don't deserve to be in this place, rented out like this. You deserve more. You deserve a real life." Siren's expression remained neutral, but her eyes darkened slightly. "No one deserves anything here," she said, her voice flat. "Not me, not anyone." Aiden felt a knot form in his stomach. "That's not true," he said, shaking his head. "I don't know everything about you, Siren, but I know that no one should be treated like this. No one should be seen as a commodity." Her gaze softened just a little, but she didn't respond. Instead, she glanced over at the vendor behind the counter, who had been watching them closely. The merchant smiled, but it was a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Aiden could feel the tension in the air. He had to act fast. "I want to buy." "You," Aiden said suddenly, his words coming out before he had fully processed them. "I want to buy your freedom." Siren's eyes widened in shock, but she quickly masked it with a faint smile. "You can't afford me," she said. Her tone was almost dismissive, as if she had heard such offers before. "The price is high. Human, you won't be able to pay." Aiden looked at the merchant, his resolve hardening. "How much?" he asked, his voice steady. He wasn't going to back down. Not this time. The vendor's smile grew wider, as if she had been expecting this. "Well," she said, stepping closer to Aiden, "for someone like her, you're looking at quite a sum. The price for a being like Siren is steep, but I'm sure we can come to an agreement." Aiden's heart sank as he heard the amount. It was more than he had ever imagined. His savings, his entire bank account, would barely make a dent. But he didn't care. He would find a way. He would do whatever it took. He turned back to Siren, his eyes filled with determination. "I'll find a way to get the money, I promise you." Siren's expression shifted, but only slightly. It was a mix of disbelief and something else, something Aiden couldn't quite place. "Why?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "Why would you do this for me?" Aiden reached out, his hand hovering near hers, but he didn't touch her. "Not yet, because you're worth it. You deserve to be free. You deserve to live a life where you're not treated like a piece of property." Siren looked at him for a long moment, her gaze piercing and full of confusion. "No one has ever said that to me before." The vendor chuckled, a sharp, mocking sound. "Of course not. People like her are meant to be used, not cherished." Aiden turned to the vendor, his eyes cold. "You're wrong," he said firmly. "She's not just some possession, and I won't treat her like one." The vendor's smile faded, but she didn't argue. She knew better than to cross a customer who was determined to make a deal. "Fine," the vendor said with a shrug. "But know this, you're not just buying her freedom. You're buying a lifetime of her services. Don't think this will? Be easy, human. You're asking for more than you realize." Aiden didn't care. He just nodded. He was willing to pay whatever it took. "I'll pay. Just make the deal. I'm not leaving without her." The vendor hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. The deal is made." Aiden's heart raced as the vendor handed him the paperwork. He didn't care about the details or the fine print. All he cared about was the fact that Siren would be free, that she wouldn't have to live like this anymore. He signed his name. And with that, the deal was complete. Siren stood there in stunned silence as the vendor handed her over to Aiden. She didn't speak, didn't react. She just stood still, her expression unreadable. Aiden turned to her, his heart pounding. "You're free now. You can live your life however you want." Siren's eyes searched his face as if looking for any hint of insincerity, but she found none. She looked down at the papers in her hands, her fingers trembling slightly. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, but I don't understand. Why me?" Aiden smiled softly. "Because you deserve better, because you're worth it." For the first time since he had met her, Siren smiled. It was small, almost shy, but it was real. And that was enough. "I don't know what to do with freedom," she admitted, looking up at him with a mixture of uncertainty and hope. "You'll learn," Aiden said gently, "and I'll be here to help you." The days after Aiden bought Siren's freedom were filled with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. Siren was free now, but she wasn't sure how to live her life. For so long, she had been bound by the expectations of being rented, used, and discarded. Now, for the first time in her life, she had a chance at something different. But the freedom she had gained felt like a heavy weight, something she wasn't sure how to carry. Aiden tried his best to help her adjust. He made sure she felt comfortable in the small apartment he had rented for them on a quiet street outside the market. The apartment was nothing fancy, but it was peaceful, quiet enough to hear the soft hum of the distant city and feel the breeze that came through the window. It was nothing like the chaos of the market where Siren had spent her days. For the first time, she could truly breathe, but despite the calm surroundings, Siren couldn't help feeling lost. She had spent so many years living in the shadows, constantly being told what to do and who to be. Now, she was supposed to make her own choices, but she didn't know how. She didn't know who she was outside of the role she had been forced to play. Aiden could see this. He could see that Siren wasn't fully embracing the freedom he had given her. She still held herself back, still kept her distance from him and the world around her. It was as though she was afraid to step forward, afraid that if she did, everything would fall apart. One evening, as they sat together in the apartment, Aiden decided it was time to talk. The silence between them had stretched long enough. "Siren," he began, his voice soft, "we need to talk." She looked at him, her eyes still clouded with doubt. "About what?" "About you," Aiden said. "About what you want now. I've given you your freedom, but I don't want you to feel like you have to live this way because of me. You can do whatever you want with your life. This is your choice now." Siren looked away, her fingers nervously twisting the fabric of her dress. "I don't know what to do with it. Freedom, I mean, I've never had it before." Aiden leaned forward, his gaze intense but kind. "That's okay. You don't have to figure it all out right now. But I need you to know that you're not alone in this. I'll be here to help you every step of the way. You can take your time." Siren stayed quiet for a long while, her eyes focused on her hands in her lap. "I'm not used to having a choice," she said quietly. "I don't even know where to begin." Aiden's heart ached for her. She had been through so much, and now she was expected to just pick up the pieces and move on as if everything had been easy. But life wasn't easy, not for anyone. Especially not for someone who had lived the way Siren had. "You don't have to do it alone," Aiden said gently. "I'm not asking you to change everything overnight. Just take things one step at a time. I'm here, and I'll help you. You don't have to be afraid anymore." Siren finally met his eyes, and for the first time, Aiden saw a flicker of something new hope. It was small, but it was there. She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll try." Over the next few days, Aiden did everything he could to make Siren feel comfortable in her new life. He took her on walks through the quieter parts of the city, showing her the beauty of a world she had never experienced before. He introduced her to new foods, new customs, and even the simplest pleasures like reading a book or watching a movie. At first, Siren was hesitant. She wasn't sure if she was allowed to enjoy such things, if she even deserved them. But as the days passed, she began to open up. She started to laugh at things that made her smile. She even began to ask questions about life on Earth, about Aiden's world. Slowly, very slowly, she started to feel a sense of belonging, a sense of freedom. But even as Siren started to adapt, Aiden could sense that there was still something holding her back. She would freeze up at certain moments, as though she was afraid of something, of making the wrong choice, or of being hurt again. It wasn't easy for her to let go of the fear that had been instilled in her for so long. Aiden could see how much she struggled, and it made his heart ache for her. He knew that this wasn't just about giving her freedom, it was about giving her the strength to believe in herself, to believe that she could have a future. One evening after dinner, Aiden decided to have a conversation with her. He knew that it was time to talk about the future, to make her see that she could have a future with him if she wanted it. "Siren," Aiden began, his voice calm and steady, "I need to ask you something. And you don't have to answer right away, I just want you to think about it." Siren looked at him curiously. "What is it?" Aiden took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. "I want you to stay with me, not just as someone I've helped, but as my partner. I want to build a life with you, if you're willing." Siren blinked, taken aback by his words. "You want to be with me?" Aiden nodded, his eyes sincere. "I've already made the decision, but I don't want you to feel pressured. I want you to make the choice too. I can't force you into anything, but I believe we could have a good life together if you want it." Siren was quiet for a long time. She looked down at her hands, her thoughts swirling in her mind. This was something she had never imagined in her life. She had always been taught that she was worthless, that she was only as good as the next person who rented her. But Aiden had never treated her that way. He had never seen her as a possession, never treated her as anything less than a person deserving of respect and love. Finally, Siren looked up at Aiden, her eyes filled with emotion. I don't know if I'm ready, she said softly. I've never had a life like this. I've never had anyone care for me. It's hard to believe it's real. Aiden reached across the table, taking her hand in his. I understand. But I'll wait for you. I'm not going anywhere. Take your time. But know this, I want to be with you, Siran, whenever you're ready. Siran looked at him for a long time, her heart racing in her chest. She didn't have all the answers, and she didn't know what the future held. But in that moment, she knew one thing for sure: Aiden cared for her. He saw her as more than just a tool, more than just a rented companion. He saw her as a person. And maybe, just maybe, she could learn to see herself that way too. With a deep breath, Siran nodded. I'll try. I'll try to believe that this is real. Aiden smiled, his heart full of hope. He had known it wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to be patient. He would help Siran find her place in the world, and together they would create a life where she could truly be free. The weeks that followed Aiden's confession were filled with moments of uncertainty and small victories. Siran had begun to open up more, though the path to healing was slow. She had spent years in the shadow of a life where her worth was determined by others, where her actions were not her own, and now she was trying to understand what it meant to have control over her own destiny. Aiden watched her closely, always patient and supportive, but there were times when he could see the doubt lingering in her eyes. It was as though she was afraid to fully trust in the life they were beginning to build together. She would sometimes pull away, retreating into her own thoughts, unsure of what her future held, but with each passing day, Aiden noticed small changes. Siran smiled more often, and she would occasionally ask questions about Earth, about Aiden's life, as though she was curious about the world she had never been allowed to explore. She even began to help with small tasks around the apartment, like cooking meals and tidying up, things that most people would take for granted. But for Siran, these were new experiences she had never been allowed to have. One afternoon, as they sat together on the couch, Aiden looked over at Siran, who was reading a book he had bought for her. It was a simple book about Earth's history, but it seemed to interest her more than anything else. She was absorbed in it, her brow furrowed in concentration as she turned the pages slowly. You know, Aiden said, breaking the silence, I'm really glad you're reading. I wasn't sure if you'd like it. Siran looked up from the book, her eyes meeting his. There was a softness in her gaze that hadn't been there before. It's interesting. I've never had the chance to learn about your world before. It's strange, but in a good way. Aiden smiled, pleased that she was finding joy in something so simple. I'm glad you think so. You deserve to know everything, Siran. You deserve to see the world however you want. She nodded, but then her expression darkened for a moment. I still don't know what I want. I've spent my whole life being told what to do, where to go. Now I have all this freedom, but it's overwhelming. I don't know where to start. Aiden felt a pang of sympathy for her. He understood that it wasn't just about freedom. It was about finding the strength to live it. It's okay to feel lost, he said softly. I don't expect you to have all the answers right away. You can take your time. Siran sighed, placing the book down beside her. But what if I never figure it out? What if I'm always just stuck? Aiden's heart ached at the thought. He could see that Siran was still carrying the weight of her past, even though she had been given the chance for a fresh start. The scars from her years of servitude were deep, and no matter how much time passed, they wouldn't fade quickly. You're not stuck, Siran, Aiden said, his voice steady and reassuring. You're here now, you're free, and that means you get to make your own choices. No one can take that away from you. Siran's eyes softened as she looked at him, her lips trembling as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Aiden reached out and gently took her hand in his, offering her a quiet reassurance. You've already made so much progress. You're not the same person you were when I first met you. You're becoming your own person, and that's a huge step. She gave a small, uncertain smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. I still don't know if I'm ready to be who I'm supposed to be, Aiden squeezed her hand gently. You don't have to be anyone except yourself. And You don't have to figure it all out today, or tomorrow, or even next week. You've already taken the hardest step by trusting me and giving this a chance. Siren's gaze softened, and she looked down at their joined hands. She stayed silent for a long moment before speaking again, her voice quieter now. I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't met you. Aiden's heart swelled at her words, but he kept his voice steady. I'm just glad I could be here for you. You don't have to thank me. This is about you now, Siren. You deserve to have a life where you're in control. She nodded, though there was still uncertainty in her eyes. But Aiden could see something else now, a flicker of hope, a spark that hadn't been there before Dazez. The days passed, their routine settled into something that felt like home. Aiden continued to help Siren adjust, showing her small things that made life more enjoyable. He took her to the local markets, introducing her to new foods and new people. He even taught her how to cook, something that Siren had never done before, and though she was hesitant at first, she soon found herself enjoying the process. But there were still moments when Siren would retreat, moments when the weight of her past would return and she would withdraw into herself. Aiden could see it, and he understood. It wasn't easy to move on from a life spent in the shadows. But he also knew that Siren was stronger than she realized. One afternoon, as they walked through a park near their apartment, Siren paused and looked around at the green spaces, the flowers, and the children playing nearby. She hadn't seen anything like this before. Her life had been filled with concrete walls and the noise of the market, but here, in the quiet park, it felt different. This is nice, she said softly, her eyes wide with wonder. I've never seen anything like this. Aiden smiled as he watched her take in the beauty of the world around her. It's peaceful. I thought you might like it here. Siren took a deep breath, her face softening. It's strange to feel this way. I've never allowed myself to just enjoy something like this before. Aiden's heart swelled with pride. You're allowed to enjoy it, Siren. You're allowed to feel peace. Siren smiled for the first time in days, her eyes bright. Maybe I can learn to do that. They continued walking side by side in comfortable silence. Aiden could feel that something had shifted between them. Siren was starting to understand that she had a future here. She didn't need to be afraid of it anymore. She had been given the chance to live her life, and little by little, she was starting to embrace that gift. Aiden knew that the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would be struggles, moments of doubt, and fears that would come rushing back, but he also knew that together they could face anything. He had already given her the freedom she deserved. And now he was ready to help her build the life she wanted step by step. The days that followed felt different for Siren. Every moment was filled with discovery, each one more freeing than the last. As she settled into this new life, a life she had never imagined she could have, she began to realize just how much she had changed. She no longer felt like a shadow of herself, drifting from one moment to the next without purpose. Now, with Aiden by her side, she was beginning to see herself as something more, something worthy of love and happiness. It wasn't easy. There were still moments when the weight of her past crept up on her, when the fear of being abandoned or used again lingered in the back of her mind. But every time she felt that fear, Aiden was there, steady and calm, showing her that she didn't have to carry it alone. His support had become her strength. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony of their small apartment, watching the sunset, Aiden turned to Siren. His gaze was warm, filled with something deeper than just affection. There was a quiet certainty in his eyes, something that made Siren's heart race with both excitement and nervousness. Siren, Aiden said softly, his voice carrying a weight she hadn't expected. There's something I need to ask you. She looked at him, her heart skipping a beat. She could feel the tension in the air, the way he was looking at her as though this moment meant everything. What is it? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Aiden took a deep breath, his gaze never leaving hers. I've been thinking a lot about what comes next for us, about the future, and I want to ask you something important. He paused for a moment, his hand reaching for hers, taking it gently in his. Siren, will you marry me? Will you be my partner, not just now, but for the rest of our lives? Siren's breath caught in her throat. The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. She wasn't sure if she had heard him correctly. It was as if the world had shifted around her, her mind racing to process the weight of what he had just said. Aiden smiled softly, sensing her confusion. I know it's a big question, and I don't expect you to have an answer right away. But I need you to know that I'm serious. I want to spend my life with you. Siren's heart was pounding in her chest. This was the moment she had never allowed herself to dream, of the moment she had never thought was possible. A life where she wasn't just surviving, but thriving. A life where she wasn't just a rented companion, but a partner, an equal. She looked at him, her mind swirling with emotions she had never allowed herself to feel. She had spent so many years locked in a cage of fear and doubt, but with Aiden it was different. He had given her the freedom to be herself, to make choices, to dream of a future she had never thought she deserved. She began, her voice shaking slightly. I never thought I would hear someone say that to me. I never thought I could have a future like that. Aiden's eyes softened and he squeezed her hand gently. You deserve it, Siren. You deserve all the happiness in the world, and I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you have it. Siren took a deep breath, her mind still racing. She had never been asked to make a decision like this. She had always been told what to do, when to smile, when to speak. But now she had a choice. She had the freedom to choose her own path, to choose the person who would walk beside her on that journey. I'm not sure I know how to love someone the way you deserve, Siren said quietly, her eyes downcast. I've never been loved like that before. I don't know if I can give you everything you want. Aiden gently lifted her chin, making her look at him. You don't have to be perfect, Siren. You just have to be you. And that's enough. You've already given me more than I could ever ask for. Your trust, your kindness, your strength, those are the things that matter. And those are the things I want to spend my life with. Siren felt a warmth spread through her chest, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. She wasn't just an object, a commodity to be used and discarded. She was a person with worth, a person who deserved love. She looked at Aiden, her eyes bright with the possibility of a future she had never imagined. Yes, she whispered, her voice full of emotion. Yes, I'll marry you. I want to spend my life with you too. Aiden's face lit up with joy, and in that moment, Siren saw the love and happiness in his eyes that never looked at her with anything but respect and care. She smiled back at him, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. For the first time, she felt truly at home. The days that followed were filled with excitement and preparation. Aiden and Siren began planning their wedding, though neither of them cared much for grand gestures. For them, it was about something more, about making a commitment to each other, about building a life together based on trust, love, and equality. They wanted something simple, something that reflected who they were. Siren still had moments of doubt, but Aiden was always there, reassuring her that she was enough. He showed her that she didn't have to be afraid of the future, that she could build it alongside him, step by step. And every time she doubted herself, Aiden reminded her of all the strength she had inside her. He helped her see the woman she had become, the woman she was meant to be. On the day of their wedding, the sun shone brightly, casting a golden light over the small garden where they had decided to marry. Aiden stood waiting for her at the front, his heart pounding with anticipation. Siren had chosen a simple dress, something that made her feel comfortable and beautiful. She didn't need anything extravagant, just a dress that made her feel like herself. As she walked down the small aisle, her heart raced with a mix of nerves and excitement. This was it. This was the moment she had never thought was possible. But here she was, standing beside the man who had shown her what love truly meant, standing beside the person who had given her the freedom to be herself. Aiden reached out for her hand, his eyes filled with love and warmth. You look perfect, he whispered. Siren smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. I never thought I would feel this way. But now I'm here, with you. The ceremony was simple, but it was everything they needed. When they exchanged their vows, Siren felt a surge of emotion she couldn't hold back. She had found a home in Aiden, and she had found a future she could believe in. As they exchanged rings, Aiden pulled her close, their foreheads touching. "I promise, Siren, I'll always be here for you. In good times and bad, I'll always love you." Siren smiled through her tears, her heart full. "And I promise to love you, Aiden, to be your partner forever." And with that, their bond was sealed, not just with a ring, but with the love they had built together, a love that would grow stronger with each passing day.